That's all you need.
Often both.
Yeah, and we have the map for game number 4 ready. Let's take a look at where we're going to be headed. And in fact, is Tomb of the Spider Queen. Sticking to some of the smaller maps here. Immediately, just because it's the map for Freedom, I feel like I'm going to give it to them. And beyond that point, Gale Force has already lost on Braxis once more. I don't think I give Gale Force an upper hand on any of the maps. So now that we know Freedom wants to go into that direction, I feel like they've got a game plan and they're ready to end the series.
I agree. It is a place where Gale Force is willing to fight quite often. They have not lost a game there, looking at my stats in Phase 2. So at least we should hopefully get a lot of battles. But we should keep in mind the Tomb game, the last Tomb game that Gale Force played versus No Tomorrow, because that was some of the most patient play we have really ever seen. And the patience that they had to get through so many things that No Tomorrow was throwing at them, Freedom has to respect that.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely have to respect that. But on the same note, it kind of comes down to there's a lot to be learned from that game. And I feel like if you are Freedom, you go, if I'm No Tomorrow, I know how to end that game. I'm not going to let that happen this time. You know, it was at least black and white enough, clear enough what the core problem was to where at least you can go like, I'm not afraid of that. You know what I mean? It's the one game where you're like, Gale Force just won really hard, and I just don't know why. Those are the ones where you're like, maybe we shouldn't take them there. But the ones where you can identify, like, look at this blatant mistake made by this team, that's where you can capitalize. And I feel like that's clear enough for Freedom.
And Freedom did beat No Tomorrow on Tomb of the Spider Queen when they played there. So in effect, it should be an even closer Tomb of the Spider Queen potential last game, which is crazy to say, with Freedom up 2 games over Gale Force eSports. Anything immediately stand out to you when we talk about Tomb for either of these teams? Besides Diva?
Besides Diva, yeah. But, you know, any map, it's like Diva with Freedom, I feel like. No, less Brightwing. Maybe a bit more Malfurion because of the lack of Brightwing. But even then, I don't know. I can still see Akaface committing to that. I don't see either of these teams sticking to the old Leo Guldans that used to be a thing of North America. Both are very much onto the offensive all-in. And there's nothing that should change around Tomb specifically.
We're back to Gale Force being in first pick. So is Genji going to make it through the bans? That's my big question. Freedom would love to be able to pick it here, but honestly, actually no.
Yeah. Gale Force is a flat-out bandit, and now is forcing, if they want the Anuber, the TAS ban. I would snap ban that Tassadar. Freedom is disagreeing, going with the Anub. We made it more than a second into this draft, so maybe I'm wrong. Like, I just thought, all right, that's done. On a small map, like on a map where you can gain value out of the frontline pressure that a composition like the Ariel can provide, those are the ones where I'm like, oh, please, Tassadar. If we don't go into the Tassadar route, what would it be here? Is it the Uther? I can't imagine anything beyond that point.
Stitches.
Wow, the
because
rise
of the Anub ban.
The rise of Stitches, just with how much secondary into things like the Arthas that we've seen Gale Force be willing to move, I didn't think that they would feel like it's a needed thing.
Well, they can postulate that if they took anything other than Uther or Stitches, that was a Stitches Uther snap lock-in for Team Freedom. And Stitches has a lot of the times been working for Freedom.
That's a good point. I mean, it really has. I mean, just flat out been pretty, one of the more, if I was to identify a problem, you know, like talking about the Diva. Diva never had that. Definitely, I can see moments where Stitches was a problem, especially post-16. I mean, that bridge fight alone, you look at that as like, oh, the mech zone, but it was more of the Stitches slow to enable that turn. That really kind of stands out for Gale Force.
I'd like to see the Greymane here if Freedom want it. Oh, but also there's
Ariel Tass. Yeah, double support, baby. Yeah, and so again, on a map like this is where it stands out so very heavily. It is so good when it comes to the wave clear, the laning setup, and it can take out front walls, which is really makes your next Web Weaver phase get that much better, and it's one of the few maps you can win in that sense. So that is why I thought the Tassadar would just be like, oh, we've got to pick that up, because giving a Tass Ariel to the other side, you can't remove enough batteries, so now you have to deal with the early game pressure that Freedom's going to have.
I know you want Malf.
No. Not with Uther. When Uther's up, okay. I want the Uther.
Yeah, so Uther and Greymane. Do they take one battery here and ban another? I think it'll be Uther Greymane. I don't know, Dahaka's still up though too, and so is Arthas. There's so many things. the Gale Force would want here.
I really hope that they go Uther and then Micah Grayman would be fine. I want to see, just not Dahaka. I can see them going for it though for the strong solo. There it is. Dahaka Grayman dropping the Uther completely. Man,
Which is weird because that is Akaface's most played hero, still is Uther. Sometimes he has different priorities than some of the other supports. As do a lot of our supports. They all have their tendencies, so I had to double check and make sure that it is still a favorite of his, but it is.
What that screams to me is they very much wanted the Malfurion, assuming that it's going to draw a ban from the Uther on the side of Team Freedom, which that Freedom is hovering. It's just, you do not go that rotation, and I feel like, and expect to be able to get the Uther later on. It's just insane to feel that way whenever Ariel was selected that high by your opponents, but Freedom's not ridding of it.
But then again, I mean, yeah, they could maybe expect that ban, but...
Gilly, think about what that means in terms of Uther, like value. Like seriously what that means in terms of like accepting, like...
If you have both Malf and Uther who can follow up, Tass and Ariel have already been picked on the other side. Malf gets banned away, so no routes to follow up from the hook, but there's less. It's not like Freedom could ban one of those supports and then pick another one because they picked the Ariel Tass.
Yeah, mainly because they committed to the Tass that both are not a threat. It's just like, man.
Honestly, it is weird to see Uther go this far in the draft, but win rate wise for North America, he's not impressive.
Terrible. Hit him with it. What is it? It was like 20 something, 30 something. Is it too hard to pull out right now?
No, I got it. All
right, brace yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Uther's win rate is too fast. Put it too much pressure.
Hold on. I had the wrong thing up.
I do
at the beginning of this weekend, he was sitting at 28%.
28%, ladies and gentlemen. Still, is he that good? Who knows? But either way, the value shift here for Freedom, I feel like is something to note because they were willing to ban the Malfurion. Remember on the other side, talking about the double support? They think that the Malfurion is that much better than even an Uther, let alone a Brightwing. Like, that was how, when they were like, Malf goes through, imagine that. Their ban just said, like, they were so satisfied when they see that not being a Malfurion, that they were willing to ban it out on their own, not let Gale Force have that. And that was part of the reason I was so focused on that, like, in the last game, to see that commitment to the Brightwing and how devastating that can be to GFE.
Michael Udall talked about that Tassadar Tracer is strong to have on Tomb. He mentioned it specifically because No Tomorrow did have Tass Tracer, and with Tassadar still up and a lot of available batteries, Tracer could have naturally been another pick to have along with a battery and a warrior. And in seeing the Malfurion ban, a way of dealing with her being a Twilight Dream, not wanting to allow Team Freedom to play Tracer and Tassadar, especially since they already dealt with that versus No Tomorrow. Vala and Muradin are the next two pickups for Team Freedom.
So now they have the battery. It's all about whoever they want onto the side lane. For Gale Force eSports, though, they still need the support. Again, I feel like this now it has to be the Uther with the Malfurion removal. What else is going to be with it? They've already got the solo. They've already got the double front line. It's the backliner that they want to move through. Into the triple, or to the trifecta sitting on the other side of the table. I'm trying to feel like if something stands out really, really heavily that can make up for my early game disadvantage, but also be successful into the team fight. I feel like Li Ming is not the answer, but it can get the follow-up to the Tychus, but Tychus can get the follow-up and the sustained DPS as long as you move into Odin, so I kind of like the idea of Tychus for the follow-up onto Stitches. We'll see.
I don't know.
They go with the Li Ming and then a Morales. My Akaface, why do you do this to me, man? I just want you to stun something after your Stitches pulls something, you know?
Or drag.
It just...
You got double the drag.
I mean, you could make the argument you've got the grenades here. I will say this much. I don't hate that Morales as much as I'm making it out to be. I know, mainly because I was just amazed at the value of Uther overall. It's because we see the trifecta get so much value, cross-supporting across the board. It wins every sustained TPS fight, and it always needs, like, we've seen the rise of Arthas, the fall of Arthas with it, because it wants you to keep you there for long periods of time. But it never threatens anything on the back lines, almost ever. It is always waiting to kill your front line. Morales just goes, well... okay.
If I'm going to be safe,
I'll just go ahead and take this one.
Let's save some lives.
I mean, look at Freedom's flat out just going like, oh yeah, how do we get pressure onto her? Do we just pick the false stat?
Are they going to Illidan?
They need to do something. The Illidan wouldn't be a terrible idea to be able to try and get that. Yep.
There it is.
Yeah, something to dive onto the back line and get that amount of pressure. It's successful into the Dahaka 1 versus 1. But again, will Dahaka really get that 1v1? Probably unlikely.
There are the drafts.
There are the drafts.
For potentially the last game, if Freedom can find a way to defeat Gale Force eSports here, that would be colossal. I don't know how much I can stress how crazy that would make our standings.
Yeah, because it creates this weird, like, circle of who beat who at the very top. Then it goes, oh my goodness, can Tempo Storm and Roll20, like, which one of those teams is going to be removing? Because now it's suddenly we have No Tomorrow and Team Freedom competing for those 2 slots. The only person who would still feel kind of comfortable and you would assume to be there would be Gale Force. And it's still not as pretty, definitely not as pretty as it was if they were to win this series. But yeah, I agree. I feel like I can't convey that enough, you know, unless you actually see the intricacies that we have at the top of our ladder here. If Freedom wins this, NA is actually all over in terms of what you can expect for the end results. Who will be our midseason brawl representatives? It's a coin toss.
We're ready for the game.
Are we?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into the game. Team of the Spider Queen. Can Team Freedom take out Gale Force eSports here 3-1? Or will we tie things up and go to game 5? We find out now. Yeah, that... Trying to figure out, because each team only plays each other once before the Western Clash. So those series have such a huge effect on the teams. And having Team Freedom be able to defeat a team like Gale Force eSports, who have beaten Tempo Storm, Roll20, and No Tomorrow, and then Team Freedom come in and get the win, well, we'll have to wait just a little bit longer.
I know, it makes me sad. You had the epic monologue going on. Everybody's getting excited. I was feeling your enthusiasm, and then we go ahead and just drop the casual pause here. It's just a small communication thing. It'll take a couple of seconds here, but we'll get the game going as soon as possible. I feel like I don't even want to say anything about the series anymore, you know? I just like, I'm ready for them to just play it out, and my words can not really add anything to this, but especially with the priority of Gale Force still sticking with the weird support priority, you know? I want to be proven wrong here by Akaface. I like his weird Morales picks way more than I like his weird Brightwing picks. Again, just because Morales is so much safer in so many different areas. They are the exact opposite hero, too, so it's so weird that he, like, really likes the Brightwing, who's the, I'm going to teleport, we all in, we win the fight, or the Morales, who's the, sit back, the fight needs to last about 5, 6, 7 seconds before I feel comfortable. Like, how do you do that, you know, in terms of, like, he has just those weird priorities, but Malf has always been at the bottom.
They're just niche. He likes his niche heroes. He makes sure that he has all of the supports available for his team. So in these instances like this, he can, you know, jump in with something that maybe other teams aren't expecting, like the Morales.
I mean, it comes out. It's just, it's one of those, like, I just feel like it works in both directions, right? It's like, yes, he does something less expected, but it's like Iacona does something less expected. He holds his talents, but I expect it from Iacona. So is it really that unexpected? I assume a weird Brightwing and a weird Morale. So, like, are you truly venturing out that much? Now, if you got the weird Karzim and the weird Mouth behind it, and the Lucio, Lily, let's talk about some of the wild ones here, okay? There's a lot more to be
Whoa, you said
weird.
Lucio.
Okay, Lucio, you're worried about Lucio over Lily? Let's be real here. Hello?
Eh.
Lucio is... He's resonant. He's sleeper.
Well, I feel, here's the thing. If a team picked Lucio, I feel like it would be along with another support, probably. Or Lily. I mean Lily. Whereas Lucio would be like, whoa, he's back. We're going to be, the music would make sense again at least.
Yeah, at least the music, at least the music would make a bit more sense. I feel
he
like
did have an amp it up buff on his heel, so maybe eventually.
I mean, I feel like just his passive movement speed, he dishes out alone. As long as you have some kind of cross supporting, I really feel like, you know, he's a bit undervalued in the world of supporting, but he doesn't really provide too much on beyond that. It's just more the Malfurion. I'm more confused on that one. The Uther value, I get why his rise and fall at Hard Heal makes a lot of sense, but the Malfurion is a huge question mark. Just because, like, I don't know, he's got the utility still.
Yes.
Why Malf was good didn't really get that hit that hard. Like, he definitely got hit hard in the terms of all-in burst, but like as a last pick in a weird thing, he got better in certain aspects, and we still don't see him.
Well, it may just be a factor of trying to get used to the meta, trying to get used to the hero and how his changes came in. But Either way, no Malfear in this game. We have the Morales. Guys, we are still experiencing a technical difficulty, so we're going to take a break. We'll be back soon with game number 4.
Bronzebeards are known across the whole of Azeroth. My eldest brother Magni was king of Ironforge, wise and fair a ruler as ever been. And Bran, well, he's a renowned explorer, always finding secrets. Being written about in Explorers League Geographic. With brothers like that, I'd feel a wee bit overshadowed. If I didn't kick so much ass! All right, lads, line up! It's hammer time!
It's not easy being queen. So many subjects to keep in line. So many scores to settle. I am the Swarm. And vengeance has never looked this good.
The most important thing I've learned in all my journeys is balance. Work and play. Good and bad. Right and wrong. Honor. Tradition. A good brew. And most especially, family. These are the things that bring me balance. These are the things I fight for.
I was born for the arena. On my squad, we trust the spirits for guidance. No one gets left behind. Not even a pink skin. And when our backs are to the wall, I call on the elements to even the odds. The name's Rhaegar. Heroes of the Storm. I am the Storm!
Welcome back, friends, to HGC, where we are eagerly waiting for the conclusion, potentially, of our series between Team Freedom and Gale Force eSports. Currently, Team Freedom are up 2-1 over Gale Force eSports, and we are right at the start of Game 4 of Tomb of the Spider Queen. Unfortunately, Akaface had some comms issues, so we're waiting for that to be resolved still. So let's talk clashes. We've talked a lot about North America being in a state of flux about who ends up representing the region at the Western Clash, and especially what this series would mean to our standings when we look at things like, what if Freedom's able to beat Gale Force eSports, who currently sits undefeated? But what about Europe? Because things have been equally crazy over in Europe as well for that, the Western Clash.
Yeah, the only constant out of Europe that seems to be like holding true is Fnatic, you know? And on the same note, it feels like one cool thing I feel like with Fnatic is after like by being able to claim a world championship, I feel like they're playing more confident, right? Which is allowing them to be like even better. It's that weird like you can get better because you claimed this title and they finally were able to win a tournament for the first time as a group. But you are right. Europe is equally, not equally, I'm going to say it shows signs of like shifting sands at the top half too. Unlike North America though, it's like 2 to 3 teams, you know, where they're beginning to question it.
Yeah, that's a good point about Fnatic having the confidence now after that tournament win, because that wasn't even just like a world championship victory. That was their first tournament victory.
First time claiming that they won a tournament together as a 5-man roster. Most teams at this stage in that level can say hundreds. I mean, think about it, like actual hundreds level of tournament that these teams have played, but they didn't even have one to claim of their own. First one, world championship. I mean, how do you even, like, how do you even continue playing? You just retire at that point, drop the mic, walk away.
And there was so much hype behind them for so long to get to that point too. A lot of times people saying like, no, this is Fnatic's tournament. This is it. This is where Fnatic overtakes Dignitas, and then Dignitas on LAN comes in and it's just like, nope, this trophy's mine. Thank you. We'll just hold this up in the air.
That's the bakery holding the trophy name.
Team Dignitas and somewhat Liquid too, both kind of they're in the standings, they're working on things too, but Dignitas came in sort of like Tempo Storm, where they were making some adjustments to see if they could make improvements to the team, and that did start things off slow for them in the standings.
Yeah, I really do like the attempt of the changes that we've seen from Team Dignitas. Honestly, I feel like many expanding the hero pool beyond just being mages, it's a really crippling thing for their draft overall, if they only can rely on that. And don't get me wrong, I think Bakery said it best. Like, the dude plays more heroes than, like, anybody, right? It's not that he can't. It's just being able to move the whole team's mentality to work around that and stuff. But we have so much of that here. Again, in NA, it's like they have smaller cases, but we have way more drastic, way more severe. But I feel like for Diggs, I really like that they're at least trying those things, you know, as long as it doesn't hurt them too much on the overall performance, because Europe is just so highly contested. They might not have the, like, room to dabble with stuff like that.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting to see who ends up representing both of these regions at the Western Clash, if we have any new blood on either side, and who might not be there that we would expect. But we're ready to get back into our game number 4, so let's go to Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Alrighty, so things got figured out. We are good to go. Gate's already going to be dropped. I forgot we had a Morales in this game, Gilly. Somehow.
How did you forget that?
I don't know. I was just like,
That's all you talked about for the break.
I know, and then it's just back to watching the Morales. Sorry, I got distracted by his skin too. That is my favorite tint of Morales.
Me too.
I'm impressed.
Once again, battered assault for an Illidan. In this case, the Illidan played by Cure.
How many times have you seen Cure play Immolation Illidan? I don't think I ever have.
Well, we've only seen one other game of his, and it was also battered assault.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, this is something we got to keep track of. I don't know if that's a Cure-specific thing, just really enjoying the battered assault, but it's a little unfair. Mikey Doll was also running battered assault, and Immolation just seems to be kind of dying, at least for the North American meta. But we want to keep your eyes on King Caffeine. No surprise there. Much like other, you know, premier warriors of North America, they're really good at the Stitches.
Yeah, that is why he being Stitches was one of our heroes to watch out for in drafts for this series. Is like Genji, both of these teams have an affinity for our warrior who just wants some playtime.
Everybody's just so rude to Stitches, you know? I do love this laning matchup for Freedom. They really enjoy Tassadar +1 for their laning matches. And it's essentially abusing the placeholder variable of Tassadar from the past, but then always sending one to be able to baby it. Their trifecta is strong enough that they don't need Illidan up into the 4-man. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they've RSVP'd once again for a lane where Tassadar's hanging out with Cure again. And so Illidan plus TAS does limit somewhat what both Collusion and Nasmus can do together as the Vala Ariel. They don't have those 3, but in the same way, Illidan is now able to drain a lot of the ammo of the towers. He already was able to do that anyway, and then add the shielding from that, and that's only going to get stronger once we get to level 4.
Yeah, so now Gale Force has to commit resources to bottom because the entire front wall is drained. If they fail to do that now, they're not going to be able to for some while. No friend or foe for a couple more seconds here, so Cure is trying to buy time, and he's managing to do so.
Wow.
I'm actually grossed out right now.
This is ridiculous. He eventually went down, but he stalled out for so long, starting out in the minions too, trying to see if he could dodge the drag thanks to that. But now, in the end, Gale Force get the first blood of the game.
Fan looking to turn in his 8 gems. He will get at that, and now halfway to the turn-in point is going to be Gale Force, but Freedom is close as well. Gems in the bank are almost identical too. We do see a small adjustment with the Ariel level 4, focusing into the Detainment Strike. It's actually, Ariel's level 4 I feel like has been the most flex talent tier for almost any hero in the meta right now. It's like everybody's got their own version of like, nah, I'll just take this, but nobody has a right or wrong, right? Like, it's just kind of like whatever you feel is best.
Yeah, we've seen repeated offense for adding damage to the team. This is heavy burden, so this is going to be able to give some slows after if you're able to hit the stun. We've also seen the increase of range for Sacred Sweep, and often we see that with the reduction of the cast time that is currently still picked with Swift Sweep. But we'll see how that slow works out for Collusion. I also noticed that there is Kala's Light this time, so getting armor after the shielding of Tassadar versus having the increased lifesteal. And it does seem like if a shield goes out, it's going to be able to be bursted down really fast from the heroes that Gale Force have. Got Li Ming and Greymane. So in this case, knowing that they may not be able to get the long plasma shield the full duration so that they can have the lifesteal from that, instead just making sure that they can have the armor after the fact.
Yeah, and we were talking about that a bit in the draft, about the Li Ming versus the Tychus, and the one reason why I was like, you know, maybe we'd be able to get a Tychus, though he has not shown himself too much in North America, is based on the sieging, you know, of the Li Ming versus the Tychus later stage of the game, having the Odin to push forward with these web weavers. But Gale Force early on, we'll see what they can make happen with their composition now, with Greymane really being, Greymane and Dahaka, the only outstanding, or excuse me, Stitches, the only outstanding siege characters on their comp.
This is another very early turn-in phase that we've seen on Tomb of the Spider Queen that seems to be more common from teams the more we watch Tomb of the Spider Queen. So it's up to Gale Force to make sure that they get enough done, that this game doesn't stall out and punish them later on for getting that earlier turn-in. And they're doing a good job with that. They're taking out the fort in the bottom lane. The rest, knowing that the rest of the Team Freedom would be defending at mid and top, getting that fort has given Gale Force eSports a level lead.
Yeah, that was a very successful first web weaver phase for Gale Force eSports, and that was just about as much as they could have hoped for. So things are right on course right now for them. Whereas Freedom, once we get done with this web weaver phase, Merton doing his best to clear things up. They have enough gems for a turn in themselves. It's just whether or not Gale Force can defend the shrines with their goaltenders long enough for the 10 spike to hit, and then they abuse that level advantage.
Yeah, there's already a lot of gems turned in for Freedom, 35, so it's not like they need the full 50 to be turned in. And Gale Force still has quite a ways to go before heroic ability. So there is a time for Team Freedom to get that turn in. They're starting with their bruisers, trying to get those to push out the mid so maybe they can get more of a control over the lanes. Valen and Ariel hanging out in the top. But the bruisers at the same time were grabbed for Gale Force eSports, and they're going to make sure that they get Giants too. So even if the turn-in comes in, they would still have a lot of presence in the lanes. Guess not wanting Giants, just wanting to make sure that Freedom weren't doing that with their Illidan.
This is, I'm just more trying to be very attentive to what Gale Force is doing in this kind of limbo here. You can tell that, like, between the nights, they felt like they had nothing better to do, so pick it up kind of whenever. It has enabled them to stall a bit of time for Freedom and draw some aggro up into mid. But Freedom hasn't been really risking trying to force a turn in either. They seem very comfortable waiting for the 10-on-10. They aren't panicking and giving that window to Gale Force eSports. So I wonder if this is going to be a trend that continues past this series now. It's about the third game on Tomb of the Spider Queen where we see the one team kind of all in and the other one intentionally hyper-focused on playing this slow, long con game.
It's a risk, but a calculated risk for Team Freedom. Heroics are here. Can they stall so that Gale Force can't get this turn in? Gale Force just now getting the gems required to be able to get that second turn in. Heroic abilities available. No Disintegrate, Wave of Force, Medevac Dropship. Greymane still considering.
I feel like Curse Bullet makes the most sense, but maybe they feel as if they don't need it, that Li Ming will always be in a proper position. It's just Curse Bullet is essentially, not only do you not have to have the Li Ming next to, you know, the Stitches hook to be able to get a kill, but it also enables you to, wow, so much damage on the K1 Pro, even the cleanse there, but they are not going to be able to keep him up.
The Rain of Vengeance was perfect, the follow-up too from Dansky, and now a second Stormbolt connects to the demise of Stitches. 2 kills just as the Web Weaver phase starts. Michael Udall now in a bit of trouble. Zugrod goes in, hoping for the body blocks, and cures there too, but Michael Udall heals himself back up. Red Web Weavers have started to descend into the lanes, but Team Freedom in getting those kills are going to limit what Gale Force can do with them.
Yeah, and we see it is the Curse Bullet pickup for GFE. I was just going to say that essentially you don't need the Li Ming next to the Stitches every time the hook comes in, and you also have more kill potential on, you know, higher HP heroes like the Murden. Cure up on bottom, found himself a shield. He will do work onto this bottom Web Weaver. The top is the only one left standing for GFE that should gain any value. See what they can make happen here on the top half.
Zugrod coming in, still the TAS Illidan dealing with the bottom lane. Michael Udall's there trying to scare Team Freedom into keeping as many resources there as they can so that Gale Force can take advantage of this top Web Weaver. Towers down, gate is 2, but so too is the Web Weaver. Team Freedom holding on to 90 gems. Gale Force still has the experience lead, but it is slight.
I think I just had an epiphany.
Oh, you're Carzine level 20?
Yes. No, it's just like, this map used to play this way a lot more, where a team would, it was almost the core strategy. Do you remember that when Tomb kind of came in and teams would play for the late game almost solely because the early game was so hard to find a way to win the game? Then Fnatic came in and ran supportless Tassadar, Leoric, all wave clear composition. And suddenly getting the first turn in and opening up the map was the core strategy.
Snowball.
That died, wave clear died, and it became an offensive meta to the point where maybe Tomb of the Spider Queen is, because wave clear is such a rare feat, early Web Weavers, though that temporary meta Fnatic kind of developed, was very relevant. Now it's actually a counter strategy to where that old school strat of playing it way slow is almost necessary.
Trying to get the better scaled Web Weavers, the
Yes.
better damage Web Weavers, your own scaling better.
Yeah, because you couldn't get that up to Fnatic because between the Tass Leo and all the wave clear that they had, they would just push entire forts starting it right out the gates, right? So then you tried to match them, slow the bleeding, and get the turn in first. But now it's at a point where those type of strategies and heroes are not nearly as relevant, and suddenly you find yourself with these continued slow things. Don't get me wrong, I still feel like a lot of that is the responsibility of the team with the Web Weavers and not wasting resources, but it could be a variable that kind of came in.
It has definitely been a trend to start that first Web Weaver phase pretty early on. We've seen it just right about at level 7 really often. Oh, nice. Stormbolt from Zugrug. Kira is there for the follow-up damage. But Gale Force responds, making sure that they're all there. They can get Michael Udall out. Hook.
It's still just going to be the slow game. Waiting for the 100 gem turn in. Gale Force isn't ahead in experience, but they are with the structures. That is relevant on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen, but not core like those of Sky Temple or Towers of Doom. Fan even got to back out looking to start the Knights, and it's going to be a slow, catered game once more here between these two teams.
Yeah, Team Freedom wanted to try to get to Haka. Mike did a great job pushing down in the bottom lane against the Web Weaver, so they never really lost the pressure that they had and the presence in that lane. But Team Freedom, in taking out the top fort, have a better setup now if they can get the boss. Future Balance go down with cleanse too.
Hook out, not gonna land there. Dansky comfortable turning around now once more. Again, this is 120 gems in the hands of Team Freedom.
Gale Force does not have enough yet to be able to get their third turn in, but it's close. Tame and Strike. Cure follow along with Michael Udall too. Team Freedom really want to get this kill on Michael Udall. He burrows trying to keep his health up, but it was too late. Dahaka goes down thanks to the Rain of Vengeance.
Yeah, the Rain of Vengeance kind of finalizing that deal onto Mike Udall. Nice Curse Bullet rebuttal onto Zugrug. Cure is just such a problem. You can see him just constantly understanding what he can and can't get away with. Even gets hooked and just metas right on top of him.
No, it wasn't a Gorge. There isn't a Gorge. It was Future Pile earlier. He meted on top though. The Tame and Strike.
It's just, who's going to stop Cure at this point? You really can't. Again, without that hard CC initiation, Li Ming not a reliable damage source into the Illidan necessarily because her orb is essentially useless. Calamity is all you can rely on. And now we find ourselves with the first Team Freedom Web Weaver phase. If I'm Gale Force eSports, I am very scared right now. I could lose this series if I just make one major mistake over what is going to be a double, possibly triple Web Weaver rotation for Team Freedom.
Yeah, Freedom needs to use this opportunity to open up the battleground as best as they can. And the fact that they are tied up in experience, they found King Caffeine, and they are getting really close to being able to get 16 if they're able to take down some structures. Tahaka, again, is by himself up in the top. That's one nice thing for Gale Force is they have somebody who can be separated from the team, whereas Team Freedom wants to have everybody together in the type of composition that they have.
No hope was built there on that initiation, so Collusion was unable to kind of heal everybody up to make sure they could pressure out on bottom, even though it was, in theory, the most ideal with that top web we were pushing out, but now they managed to get a bit more hope and have a rotational advantage over GFE. Take out mid, and now it looks like they were going to back away with those 16s. Do they start the boss or do they try and force a major turn-in? Whatever they do, they need to split up when they try and force this turn-in.
Yeah, Freedom didn't get a lot done. Like Gale Force, they were only able to get that force. Gale Force in all the damage that they threw out and the hook landing.
Yeah.
Scared away Team Freedom from the bottom lane. They had to take time to rotate up to the mid. Yes, they got the fort there, but now Freedom have run through a lot of their gems. They still have enough for one more, their third turn-in, and Gale Force is right along those same lines too. But Freedom is starting to win the fights, and that's the big deal for them.
Calf moving up, met the Storm Bolt of Zugrug. Flying hammers when you turn a corner is maybe not the most appealing place. Good use of friend or foe to dodge the Stitches hook there from Cure. And now 36 attempted to turn in. But on the top half, actually, Mikey Doll is kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah, he turned in 11 gems, so that's getting Gale Force closer to the turn-in. But the zoning is real for Team Freedom, and nobody else is up there. The drag connects. Cure metas just in the nick of time. Crystal Aegis after the fact. Cure's gonna stay alive, maybe?
He got the friend or foe, but the flask from Fan at the very end there gets the pick.
And now he throws down the Cursed Bullet on to Zugrug. He initiates then onto the backside, but Vala falls on out. Disengage forward. Zugrug relies on the healing of his team, and he is going to be fine.
Team Freedom did not turn in along with that engagement, so it's not an issue of losing Kira at the beginning of their turn-in phase, but they are going to have to contend with Web Weavers from Gale Force eSports. Again, Gale Force is in the spot where they use so many of their gems that they have total, so it's up to them. It's on them to make these worth it.
I do want to say one major difference between the two games we've had the team with the upper hand struggle to win, that both of them did, that Gale Force is not, is boss. That condition they have never removed from the table. That is your breathing room between Web Weaver cycles. So the fact that Gale Force has not taken that and wasted that still allows them to kind of further their lead better than any other that we have seen recently at Phase 2 North America on Tomb.
That's it for Dimensional Shift. Detainment Strike tries to deal with Michael Udall, who's flanked from the side. So in with his Essence to heal back up.
Pretty big rain there, landing on top of two, but it's more poke than anything. Calf missing another hook. And these Web Weavers look like they're only going to secure a fort. That is, man, not good.
Both of the teams have struggled trying to get a lot opened up with one Web Weaver phase, but really that's thanks to the great defense from either side. King Caffeine threatening with his hooks. Team Freedom with their team fights, their Illidan. Final fort down for Team Freedom, Gale Force eSports. Man, these teams are neck in neck in everything.
This is the part of the game. It's not too often that we find the circumstances come up, but where Giants are actually a huge tool on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen. Just if any time Gale Force can try and cycle that and get split aggro, you can use it. It's essentially the only way to force a nice boss out of at least allowing, you know, Cura to go off on the side and get the clear on his own. And again, he doesn't have the hunt on a map this small. So you can try and force bad rotations because, again, begging for 36 gems or whatever many you are going to need, about 30 at this point, is just totally unrealistic. There is going to be a window where Freedom will be able to turn those in. Nasmus can do it single-handedly.
I'm looking at level 20 and what teams will be able to get. A lot of survivability. I'm wondering if it'll be Apex Predator or Essence Claws in this case. Maybe even changes survival if Mike is fearing for his ability to get the maximum amount of healing, he wants to get more healing out of his adaptation. And I believe it also reduces the cooldown of that.
Here's the Giants I was talking about. Might be a tool that Gale Force can actually use for some kind of cheeky play, but it's one of the few things you can actually force something on this map this late in. Cure gonna move in, dashes onto Caffeine, getting body block, cleanse is used there. No healing beam thrown out yet, and there it goes down. Cure forced the metamorphosis away, but he managed to survive.
Yeah, he had to use it more as survival, so didn't get a big boost of health there. Michael Udall, with his survivability, has been a target multiple times for Team Freedom, but they have trouble taking him down if they don't have a Rain of Vengeance to try to lock him down. Another trade of heroics. but no kills.
Just that, just trading
Just
heroics.
trading heroics.
Gilly, I will trade you an Avatar, Archon, Metamorphosis, and Arena Vengeance. What do you have in return?
Well, I have an adaptation as well as Putrid Bile and a Cursed Bullet.
You know, we'll take that. Yep.
Nice. Thank you. Nice doing business with you.
Glad we could agree on that. It's the gentleman here that is Team Freedom and Gale Force eSports.
This is really a scary point for both the teams. Team Freedom has a lot of gems.
It's
they
scarier
want to
for
get
Freedom,
turned in.
I feel like. Hold on a minute here.
They have so many gems, and Gale Force is really close to 20. Team Freedom recognize that Gale Force is just too close to 20. Gale Force is going to be able to turn in all of their gems. They're just a few short from getting some more web weavers. But at least Team Freedom are watching the boss, making sure that Gale Force can't get too much out of this.
2 more go in, and 1 is all that's needed for GFE. That top lane has it. K1 Pro looks like he's going to be the man who goes in. There it is. They only picked up 1, though, and they didn't put it on multiple targets, so he's the only one who has to be interrupted if they don't want to get a turn in. He's got it. Web Weaver's over to GFE.
Freedom did their best to clear out the lanes as far as they could. Once again, everything being used from Gale Force eSports. This really is it. This is the turn-in phase for them.
Gilly, I've heard you say that 2 times before.
Yeah, but
I refuse to believe.
definitely is. I never said this is the last.
Gilly, I bet you $1 esport dollar that they don't even get a keep.
Okay.
$1 esport dollar on that one. Somehow, there's no world where that should happen, but I just see it happening. With how this has played out so far, Gale Force doesn't want to make the move that potentially risks them the game like they experienced on Sky Temple. But Freedom is afraid to make the move. They've always had it in their head to play it slow and get to the point of the game where they can get that one web weaver phase, get the 20 fight, and they can win. They just haven't gotten it.
They never have to worry again after this about being behind a talent tier. They're going to take the fight to behind just enough so that Nasmus and Collusion can clear out. First bullet went out. Zugberg popped Avatar. Archon's been there too. He's keeping it going.
Yeah, keeping the channel there alive with Dansky.
Illidan's dealing with the rest of the web weavers, and Michael Udall hanging out as much as he can too, trying to assist.
We'll go ahead and claim my esport dollar. Thank you. And this might be one dead Mike Udall caught out there. That is
Boss.
Absolutely horrific for GFE, but again, never respond to a losing situation. This is what Gale Force does better than every team in North America. Gain something to earn something.
Team Freedom are not going to get here even close, so they're just going to get their turn in. Gale Force made that rotation so fast. Boss now pushing down the top lane against the web weaver there.
Yeah, and if Freedom was feeling a little bit weird, they might have been able to stall at that turn in just a couple seconds more, just because you can assume Gale Force went to the boss. You assume when you turn in this web weaver, you aren't going to do anything but respond to boss. So staggering that closer to the Dahaka, I'd like to see, but it's also got a global, something that maybe these members don't want to risk. And honestly, Freedom's been playing the first 22 minutes of this game slow. I don't know why I expect anything different.
They do have enough gems to be able to get a turn in behind this though. So what's the difference if they just stall things to get the lanes finally pushed out against them, and they still kept their keep alive. They can push with those, go back, turn in for the next phase, hope to end the game with it, because we're getting into the later stages of Tomb. The extreme later stages.
Into the, oh man, this is one of the only maps that you can find this long of a game level stages of Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Dansky wants to get that duration back up. Twilight Archon. The siege has started.
The spike there with the 20 Archon is just absolutely ridiculous. Or excuse me, Kira goes in. The Web Weaver has been dealt with. No burrow yet. The hook onto Zugrug. Door toss away. No burrow still. I thought for sure we would see right in that little choke, that flank though instead. Mikey Doll's going to be collapsing around. Zugrug and friends are going to move in.
Gale Force is split. Look at Mike. He's not flanking. He's constantly torn. He's been out of this fight the whole time.
Team Freedom could not figure out if they were going to be able to make it out or not, so they're kind of going back in, scaring away, backing out. Mike never went in, and Team Freedom make it out, only using their Archon.
He was dancing back and forth. You saw for a moment, he was like, oh man, they're going to turn. So then he's like, I need to go to the right side. But he's like, oh no, they're retreating.
Avatar's down this time. Zugra gets pulled in.
No immediate damage there. Fan didn't throw out the cursed bullet. Nasmus and him trading. You know, one talent that is gaining so much value at this stage of the game.
Twilight Archon?
Yeah. Oh, not only that, the Grayman, Gilnean, the 20. What am I thinking of here? Off the top of my head, I'm struggling.
Oh, Hunter's Blunderbuss.
Yeah, that thing is the wave clear and pressure that's putting out for Gale Force eSports, because originally they're struggling in that department. Now every auto attack splashes. Looking good. Webweaver phase now going over to Team Freedom.
Dansky's like, give me something to attack. No. Archon on cooldown, but once again, we have a Webweaver phase. We are 24 minutes into this game, and not a single keep has been deconstructed.
It's beautiful. It's everything I hoped it to be and more. With this Webweaver phase, bottom keeps dead, or bottom 4, excuse me, is dead 100%. Mid is already being dealt with, so it doesn't do anything. It's all about top.
This is a late game Illidan. Gale Force have to figure out how to deal with Team Freedom right now, or they are going to lose this game. Unless Team Freedom disengage. They didn't get the keep. They're just going back to the minions, regrouping. Back in.
Were we keeping that bet up? Because I feel like I'm getting
No.
rich. I'm rich real quick. This one doesn't count. The Webweavers are... Oh, wait, bottom's still alive. So maybe technically you could claim it's true.
One more storm.
Dansky!
One more storm.
Oh,
He's got it.
Now why move forward, Gale Force? That is a part of human psychology I think I'll never understand. Your keep dies, and the first thing you do is punish the bad guys for killing your keep. But why not when your keep's alive, you know? Like, the first instinct every human feels is click close, chase them down. They shouldn't be able to get away with this.
How dare you?
But every single time, it's like, well, why didn't you take that fight when your keep's alive?
I didn't want to point out the last fight, the repulsion from K1 Pro, the last time that Team Freedom were at the keep, trying to pull Zugrug back in after the hook had already gone down and he had been able to make it out with Avatar. It was close. We'll need those kinds of plays because now their top keep is down. And Freedom still have enough gems for another turn-in. 70. Have you seen a 70 turn-in before?
Not on two different sides, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it on two different sides. I've seen it, I think
it's rare.
I think I've gotten like the old classic, you know, oh, wait a minute. Caffeine took a bit of pressure. Only cost repulsion. Dansky was hooked, but dimensional shift. Zugrug gonna move forward.
They're ready for this.
There's no Mike Udall in the rain. And that is Cap going down. The medevac. Can Aka make it out? No, he can't. He's going down. Can Mike Udall get a turn in? Nope. So now 2 members dead, 60 seconds, boss alive. What do we see Freedom do? Chasing Fan is a nice start.
Take out Fan. They can go. They already have a keep down. They've got 3 people taken out. The support, the main warrior, and now taking down Fan. It's down to K1 Pro and Michael Udall. Team Freedom have played this out patiently. So did Gale Force eSports, but Team Freedom have an Illidan to go on to core 27 minutes into this game.
27 minutes in. A lot of Webweavers, but it feels like one fight was all it took. And now Team Freedom, in fact, will take out Gale Force eSports 3-1 and shoot their way up to the very top here. That is ridiculous. Right? I mean, that is now a tied score between the two, and he took out Gale Force. I don't know the interaction with No Tomorrow now off the top of my head.
Yeah, we have to look.
But either way, that is like my coffee cup every time. That is just insane.
I freaked out so much in that last fight that I stomped
I know, you
on
actually,
the court of my head.
Your mic was just like all over the place. I didn't know what was happening there, but
I'm having troubles with it this weekend. Team Freedom have done it. If they ever wanted to make a statement for why they deserve to be at not only the top of the North American standings, but a contender for the Western Clash, they just made it.
Yeah, they did. They really did. I didn't think we would experience this. Not 3-1. I feel like if there was any way it was going to be in a very different manner. I felt like at the end of it all, I felt like if Team Freedom was going to win the series, I was like, it was Gale Force losing it more than Team Freedom winning. I don't feel that way at all. Gale Force, I think that last game is a prime example. Had no right winning that game. With the amount of resources they burnt at the certain points they burnt. Granted, Freedom would play the game really passive too, but that Gale Force showed it in multiple games throughout the series, whereas Freedom didn't. Granted, they were playing really slow like we know them to. They wait for that late game fight, but no team in North America knows how to like, end the game fast enough against Freedom, and they always win the late game fight.
It was more late game fighting from them, but a lot of that felt like a lot of the drafting was focused on them maybe not getting the things that they felt comfortable brawling with the entire game the way it was before. But I also do feel like it was a little bit more respect, pulling back.
Yeah.
We're up against a whole different caliber of enemy now in Gale Force eSports, and we need to respect that. So maybe going back to the style of Freedom that we've seen last phase, but still fantastic play from Team Freedom. They were able to take out Gale Force eSports. Let's check in with Zugrug, because I'm sure he's pretty pumped right about now. Hey, Zugrug, congrats! You guys just took out Gale Force.
Yeah, it feels really good.
I'm sure. Did you guys have any expectations of being able to do that? How confident were you guys going into the series?
Kier said it was going to be a 3-1, and he was right. I felt good going into the series, though. Yeah. I think we all were feeling good about it.
How did you guys feel about how the drafting was going for you guys? Obviously, you got your Stitches some. King Caffeine was going to want that too, but it did seem like there was a lot of overlap of heroes that you guys also enjoy, like Genji and Stitches.
Yeah, I feel like we were forced sometimes to draft more late game comps. They were just like early game global comps a lot of the time, which was a bit hard to deal with, especially on that Towers game, but we got stuff that we wanted, and it worked out.
Yes, it did. That is true. Dread?
I mean, my question to you is just going to be, we have our versions, but I want to hear it from you guys specifically. What do you feel like was your guys' key to success here today over Gale Force eSports? Like if you had to go one variable, either that you've been working on or just that happened to show up today, what do you feel like really gave you the upper hand?
I feel like today our comms were like really, really on point, and we like made really good decisions with shot calling. Like a lot of times we just gave up stuff to get something later into the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Did you feel like there was any other major shift up or just the communication?
Just really good comms today, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Zugrug, you guys play Roll20 now, or next weekend. So what are your thoughts on that matchup? How are you guys feeling going up against Roll20?
Roll20, obviously they're a strong team looking at last season and this season, but after being Gale Force, who was first place, I feel like we can just beat anyone if we just play our best.
Nice. That's great to hear. I'm looking forward to that series. Congratulations again on your victory. Any shout-outs before we let you go celebrate?
Shout-outs, of course, to Team Freedom, our fans, and just all my teammates for playing amazing today.
Well said. Well spoken. Thank you, Zugrug, very much. Congrats again.
Thanks, guys.
He's a man of few words.
He is a man of few words, you know, but I feel like when you get something out of him, like even at the end there where you can kind of see him going like, just shout out to my teammates, and you feel like you're like, see something in him, and you're just like, there's actually a lot more behind that, but he's not willing to let it out in an interview. Don't blame him there, but there's got to be a lot of emotions going through both sides of the battlefield. I mean, let's not even begin to talk about what Gale Force has got to be feeling right now, because even though they, I imagine, expected a close series, that is one where you really, really wanted to be able to win, and I feel like it solidified again that kind of hype, because I feel like though we don't address it, Gale Force also acknowledges the fact that they have this, yes, there's hype when we roster swap, and yes, we never meet up to it, and losing this, I feel like, is the first step of not meeting up to that hype train. This is now your same roster swap as we've always seen, and not being able to perform at the level everyone thought the roster would.
This is a defining moment for the new roster of Gale Force eSports. It's their first loss in Phase 2, but we'll have to wait until next weekend to see how they are going to